The border of fear. The galaxy was full of voices. Ships moved from star to star. Merchants traded. Soldiers patrolled. Diplomats argued. Every system had noise, chatter, and endless signals. But at the edge of human space, there was silence. Silence was not empty. It was heavy. It carried a weight that every pilot felt in their bones, no matter how fast or brave a captain was. When their ship reached the border of human territory, the engines slowed, the crew fell quiet, and every screen dimmed as if the stars themselves warned them not to cross. Alien races told stories about this silence. Some said it was the ghosts of fleets that once dared to enter human space. Others believed it was a trap, that invisible weapons destroyed anyone who crossed, and some whispered that the silence itself was alive, listening, watching, waiting. On the station of Calros, far from Earth but close enough to the border, a young alien pilot named Renar asked a question that made the whole bar go quiet. "Why do we stop at human space?" he asked, his voice firm. The music ended, drinks froze in midair, and every set of eyes turned to him. The elder captain nearest to him leaned forward and hissed, "Do not ask that, boy." Renar frowned. "But we are explorers, are we not? We chart new systems, fight great wars, build empires. Yet one small species draws a line across the stars and we all obey like frightened children." The elder slammed his hand on the table. "Because they are not small, and because the line is not small either. It is a wall of silence, and silence kills." Renar laughed nervously. "They are just humans. A single world. One species among thousands. What could they possibly hold that frightens the whole galaxy?" The room darkened as if the station itself wished to swallow his words. One trader muttered, "Ask the fleets that never returned." Another spat, "You will not find them, because there are no survivors." Renar felt a chill run down his spine, but he pressed on. "I have heard these rumors, but rumors are for children. I want truth. What is beyond that border?" The elder captain stood, towering over him, eyes burning with anger and fear. "You think we did not ask that question? Long ago we all asked, and some were foolish enough to go. They never came back. Their empires cracked. Their people begged for mercy. But humans gave none." He leaned closer. "That is why no one speaks of it, because no one wants to follow them into silence." The bar fell back into uneasy noise, but Renar could not let it go. Later that night he walked to the viewing deck, looking out at the stars. Beyond the glass stretched the border of human space, a wide black void where sensors refused to. Road ships never entered that dark. Even light itself seemed slower there, like it bent around some unseen presence. Renar whispered to himself, "What are you hiding, humans?" The glass fogged with his breath. For a moment he thought he saw something move in the darkness, a shape vast and patient, like a predator resting just beyond sight. When he blinked, it was gone. But the feeling remained, a presence that weighed on his chest and pressed into his bones. The next morning, word of Renar's question spread through the station. Some mocked him, saying he was a fool to tempt fate. Others avoided him, afraid the humans might notice his curiosity. But in the council chambers above Calros, whispers began. The younger members of the council were worried. If one pilot dared to question the border, how long before others followed? The council leader, an old reptilian with scarred skin, silenced them with one phrase. "The silence is a warning, not a mystery, and those who break it never return." Renar did not hear those words. Instead, he sat in his small quarters, looking at the star map. Every route, every path, every line of trade ended before human space, like rivers that reached a cliff and stopped. He clenched his fists. Somewhere beyond that border, there had to be an answer, and he wanted it, no matter the risk. That night, he dreamed of a voice. It was soft, almost kind, but it filled him with dread. The voice whispered, "You are heard." Renar woke with sweat running down his face, his heart pounding like thunder. The silence outside the window seemed thicker than ever, and for the first time he felt the weight of every warning he had ignored. But deep inside, curiosity burned stronger. The border of fear was not enough to hold him back, and he promised himself He would find out why the galaxy obeyed the humans, even if it cost him everything. The forbidden records Renar could not sleep. The dream of the Whisper followed him even in waking hours, when he walked through the crowded station halls. He felt as if unseen eyes were fixed on him. When he sat in his cockpit, the stars seemed to flicker differently, as if warning him to stay away. But curiosity was stronger than fear. He knew the public stories ended at the human border, but he also knew something else. There had to be records, buried deep, old files the Council never wanted anyone to see. So Renar went where few dared to go, the restricted archives. They were hidden inside the lowest levels of the station, guarded not by soldiers but by silence and locked doors. He bribed a clerk, traded favors with a smuggler, and finally slipped inside. The walls hummed with the weight of data, endless. Shelves of crystal storage filled the room. Renar's hand shook as he activated a forgotten console. Lines of text scrolled across the screen, most blacked out, censored, or marked classified. At first it was meaningless, just dates, names of fleets and empty reports. But then he found one, labeled Expedition Sigma 13. The report was old, written centuries ago, and most of it was redacted, yet one part remained, and his blood turned cold as he read it. Fleet entered human. Space at 1400 hours. Contact with unknown presence established. They listened. The record ended there. No description of ships, no mention of weapons, only that single line. They listened. Renar sat frozen. Who listened? The humans? Or something else? Why had the record been cut? And why had it been hidden so carefully? He dug deeper. More records surfaced. All the same pattern. A fleet enters human space. Silence follows. Then fragments of messages cut short. Some reports contained screams, audio frozen in time. One ended with a captain's voice crying, "The stars are..." Before it was torn away, another showed only static, with faint whispers in the background. Not human, not alien, but something. Between Renar's heart pounded, his mind racing, he whispered, "What are you hiding, humans?" His voice echoed too loud in the empty archive, and for a moment he thought he heard a reply. A faint echo that was not his own. The sound made him shut off the console, sweat dripping from his brow. He stuffed the data crystal into his jacket and left the archives quickly. But the silence followed him, pressing close, heavier than before. Later that night, in the dim light of his quarters, he showed the crystal to an old smuggler named Caro. Caro had flown closer to human space than most and bore the scars to prove it. Renar whispered, "Look at this. Tell me what you see." Caro frowned, played the recording, and when the words "they listened" appeared on the screen, his face drained. Of color, the smuggler's voice cracked. "I told myself it was just a dream, a trick of space, but now..." Renar leaned forward. "What did you see?" Caro swallowed hard. "Not ships, not fleets, not weapons, but something that made the stars themselves vanish, like a shadow stretching across the galaxy." He looked Renar in the eyes. "It was watching me, and I swear, boy, it knew my name." Renar's breath caught. The old stories had always been vague, but this was different. This was proof, or close enough. The silence was not an accident, not a myth. It was alive, and it was listening. Word of Renar's discovery spread quietly, carried by whispers among smugglers and wanderers. The council began to notice the unease. They ordered more patrols, more guards around the archives. But it was too late. The spark of curiosity had been lit. More pilots, more historians, more reckless explorers began asking the forbidden question. Renar knew the danger, but he could not stop now. If the humans were guarding something, he had to know. If fleets were being swallowed whole, he had to see. And somewhere deep in his bones, he felt the truth was already aware of him. That night, he stood once more at the viewing deck. The border stretched out before him like an ocean of black glass. He touched the glass and whispered, "If you are listening, then hear me. I will cross, and I will learn why you keep the galaxy in silence." The stars flickered just for a moment, and Renar's chest grew tight. It felt like an answer, but one he was not ready to hear. Still he smiled, his fear drowned by determination. The records had given him only pieces, but soon he would have the whole truth, even if the truth destroyed him. The first trespass. The galaxy had always whispered of human space, but whispers were not enough for warlords. Warlords lived on fear, but also on pride. One such warlord was named Veyruk, a commander of 50 ships, feared across 3 sectors. Where others saw silence, Veyruk saw an opportunity. He gathered his captains in the war chamber, the stars glowing on the holomap between them. "We waste time fearing shadows," he said, his voice sharp. "The humans are only one species, one world hiding behind myths. Why should we bend to them?" The captains shifted nervously. None dared agree, but none dared oppose him. Veyruk's clawed hand struck the table. "If the galaxy kneels before silence, then I will break it. I will enter human space, and I will show all species that nothing waits there but weakness." Rumors spread fast. Traitors whispered. Soldiers muttered. Smugglers laughed nervously. Some hoped Veyruk would win. Others prayed he would never return. Renar, sitting in a quiet corner of the station bar, listened with wide eyes. This was it. The trespass that no one dared before was now happening, and deep inside he felt dread instead of excitement. The fleet prepared, massive ships bristling with weapons, banners painted in crimson and gold, 50 warships against silence. Veyruk made sure every signal was broadcast. He wanted the galaxy to watch as he shattered the human border. On the day of trespass, countless eyes turned to the border. Stations tuned their receivers. Smugglers tuned their scanners. The council itself sat in silence, watching, waiting, praying. The fleet crossed the line. At first, nothing happened. The stars blinked the same. The ships moved forward, their engines roaring. Veyruk laughed through the comms. "See? The silence is nothing. The galaxy has feared shadows for too long." But then the shadows moved. It began small, with flickers in the sensors. Screens glitched. Signals stuttered. Pilots banged their controls, shouting that their instruments had gone blind. One ship after another reported failure, until the entire fleet was blind. "Stay in formation," Veyruk barked, his voice breaking through static. The stars around them seemed to dim one by one. Darkness spread like ink, swallowing constellations. Then, out of the black, a sound came. Not a weapons blast, not a scream of engines, but a whisper. It was the same whisper Renar had heard in his dream, soft, cold, and endless. "We hear you." The fleet froze. Pilots clutched their heads, some screaming, others falling silent. A captain shouted, "Commander, they are inside my mind!" Another cried, "I cannot move, something holds us." The comms filled with overlapping voices, human and not human, thousands at once. "You enter uninvited, you seek answers, you will find silence." And then the ships began to vanish. Not explode, not burn, not break. They simply folded into darkness, as if swallowed by an unseen hand, one after another, until only fragments of signals remained. A scream, a prayer, a whisper, cut short into nothing. Across the galaxy, those listening trembled. Stations fell silent, markets closed, even pirates stopped their raids. Everyone knew. The humans had answered without moving, but not all was gone. A single pod shot out from the black. Spinning wild and broken, it escaped the silence and drifted back into alien space, carrying one survivor. The pod was found by a patrol ship, and inside was a soldier with hollow eyes, his voice shaking as he repeated one phrase. They were waiting for us. The council hid the survivor, locking him away in a chamber no one could enter. But the whispers spread anyway. The galaxy now knew. Humans did not fight wars with weapons. They fought wars with silence, and silence always. One. Renar heard the survivor's words in secret, and his blood ran cold. "They were waiting for us," the man had said. That meant they knew. They always knew. No matter the time, no matter the fleet, no matter the strength. The humans were listening. That night Renar stood once more at the viewing deck. The border glowed faintly, a line of nothingness stretching forever. He whispered, "What are you guarding, humans?" The silence pressed closer like an answer, and for the first time, Renar understood why the galaxy was afraid. The silence was not emptiness. It was presence. It was power, and it was waiting for the next trespasser. The last survivor, the survivor, was carried into the council's hidden chambers. He was weak, his skin pale, his eyes wide and unfocused. He clutched at the air as if something unseen still wrapped around him. Doctors tried to calm him, but every time they touched him, he screamed. Renar had only seen him once from behind the thick glass of the observation room. The soldier sat strapped to a chair, shaking, his lips cracked from whispering the same words over and over. "They were waiting for us, they were waiting for us." No matter how much water or medicine they gave, he said nothing else. But one night, when the chamber was quiet and the guards had left, a recorder caught something different. The soldier stopped repeating his phrase. Instead, his head tilted as if he was listening to someone standing right beside him. He whispered, "Yes, I hear you. I remember the stars folding." Then his body convulsed and he screamed, "No, please, not again!" The council erased the recording from the public archive, but secrets never stayed buried for long. Smugglers carried the rumor to Renar, and Renar's curiosity only grew. He asked himself, what did the man hear? Who spoke to him when no one else was there? Days later, Renar bribed his way into the lower levels, desperate to see the survivor again. The chamber stank of fear, metal, and medicine. Through the glass, he saw the soldier, thinner now, his bones sharp against his skin. The man's eyes lifted suddenly, staring directly at Renar. Renar froze. The survivor should not have known he was there. The glass was one way, but the soldier's gaze burned into him, and then the man's lips moved. "They know you too," he whispered. Renar stumbled back, his chest tight. The soldier began to laugh, a broken, hollow laugh that filled the chamber like shattered glass. The guards rushed in, trying to calm him, but the man only screamed louder. "They are listening. They are listening right now." His voice rose until alarms blared and the lights flickered, and then, without warning, he fell silent, his head slumping forward, lifeless. The council declared it natural. Stress, trauma, madness. But Renar knew better. The man had not simply died. He had been silenced. By what, or by who, Renar could not say. Word of the survivor's death spread quickly. For some, it was proof that humans were merciless. For others, it was proof that something far worse waited in the dark. The fear grew heavier, pressing across the galaxy like a storm cloud. That night, Renar returned to the viewing deck, unable to stop himself. The border glimmered faintly, that endless wall of black. He pressed his hand against the glass and whispered, "If you hear me, if you truly listen, then tell me, what do you want?" The silence thickened. The stars around the border dimmed, and though no sound filled the room, Renar felt it, a pressure in his skull, a whisper without words. It was not human, not alien, but something vast and endless. He staggered back, clutching, his head gasping for air. When the pressure lifted, Renar fell to his knees, his heart pounding. He looked at the stars and whispered, "You are guarding something." The silence seemed to pulse in reply. Far across the galaxy, the council debated how much longer they could keep control. Some argued to strengthen borders, to make sure no fool tried another trespass. Others whispered of negotiating with the humans. But everyone knew negotiations were pointless. The humans had spoken only once in centuries, and their words had been clear. The silence is mercy. Do not test us again. Still, Renar could not let go. The survivor's gaze haunted him. The way those dead eyes had found him through the glass. The way those cracked lips had said, "They know you too." It meant something. It meant Renar was already seen, already marked. And if that was true, then running would not save him. The only way forward was to uncover the truth hidden behind human silence. As he stared once more into the void, Renar's determination hardened. He whispered, "I will not die without knowing." And in the distance, the stars seemed to flicker, as if something vast had just shifted in the dark. The human warning. The survivor was gone, but his words remained. They know you too. Renar heard them in his sleep, echoing through every dream. When he walked the halls of the station, he felt whispers brush against his ears, though no one stood near him. He had touched something he should not have touched, and he knew the humans, or whatever they guarded, were aware of him now. But it was not just Renar. The entire galaxy felt the pressure building. Trade slowed. Explorers canceled their missions. Even pirates kept their ships away from the border. Fear had grown so strong it turned into silence. And in that silence, the humans finally spoke. It began on a quiet night at Calros Station. Every console flickered at once. Every hollow screen, every comm channel, every piece of glass turned black. Then words appeared in pale white, burning into the minds of all who looked. The silence is mercy, do not test us again. The message carried across the stars from one system to the next, from the council halls to the smallest smuggler's ship. Everyone saw it. Everyone heard it. Even those without screens swore they felt the words vibrating in their skulls. Renar stood in the viewing deck when the words appeared. His reflection on the glass was replaced by the warning, huge and sharp. His chest tightened, his heart raced, but his eyes refused to look away. The words seemed alive, as if someone or something was staring back through them. Across the galaxy, panic erupted. Some races ordered their fleets to retreat far from human borders. Others shut down communications, afraid to draw more attention. And yet, in council chambers, arguments broke out. What does it mean, mercy? One delegate shouted, why would they call silence a mercy? Another demanded. The leader slammed his hand on the table. Because without mercy we would already be gone. Renar listened to the news, his thoughts racing. The message was not random, it was precise. It came after the trespass, after the survivor, after the whispers had reached him. It felt less like a warning to the galaxy and more like a direct answer to him. That night he played the message again and again on his small console. The words filled the dark of his room. Every time, he felt them press deeper into his mind. Finally, he whispered back, mercy for what? What are you hiding? For the first time, the console responded. The screen glitched, the words blurred, and faint letters appeared. So faint he thought it was a trick of his eyes. You are not ready. Renar's breath caught. He leaned forward, his hands shaking. Not ready for what? But the screen flickered back to black, the silence returning heavier than before. The next day, the council announced new laws. No ship was to approach within 3 systems of human borders. Violators would be hunted, destroyed, erased. The council claimed it was for safety, but everyone knew it was fear. Fear of what the humans might do next, yet whispers spread anyway. Traders claimed they saw stars vanish in the border sky, as if enormous shadows moved between them. A miner swore. His ship felt pulled, not by gravity but by something alive and deep in the smugglers' bars. Men and women told stories that the humans had built ships larger than planets, hiding in the silence, waiting for the day the galaxy broke its promise. Renar listened to all of it, his chest burning with both terror and hunger. He knew he should walk away, forget the border, forget the voices, but he couldn't. The warning had been clear, but so had the answer. There was something more, something worse than silence. That night, he returned to the viewing deck once more. The border shimmered faintly before him. Endless and black, he whispered, I am ready, show me. The stars blinked in reply, one by one, like eyes opening in the dark, and Renar's heart pounded with both fear and wonder. The human warning had silenced the galaxy, but for Renar it had only made the mystery louder. The rumor of power, the warning had frozen the galaxy. No one dared move near human space, no fleet, no scout, not even smugglers. Trade routes curved around it. Star maps ended at it, as if silence itself had become a wall. But walls never lasted forever, and whispers began to slip through the cracks. They started small, carried by miners and traders. A pilot claimed he saw the stars bend as though something massive passed between him and the void. A freighter captain swore her sensors picked up an object larger than a moon drifting just beyond human borders, but when she blinked it was gone. Others told stories of lights in the silence, patterns too precise to be natural, as if entire cities floated unseen in the dark. On Calros Station, Renard listened to them all. The bar was alive with hushed voices, every table thick with rumor. "They say the humans have ships the size of planets," one trader whispered. Another leaned close. "Not ships, weapons. They say a single human vessel can erase a system without firing." A smuggler spat into his drink. "Fools, it's worse than that. I flew close once and I swear the silence." It moved with me. Renard's hands clenched at his sides. Every word fed the fire inside him. The need to know. The need to see. If even half of the stories were true, then the humans were not defending their space. They were defending something else behind it, something so terrible that silence itself was a shield. The council tried to smother the rumors. They declared the stories lies, said the whispers came from fear-drunk minds. But Renard noticed how the council members' eyes shifted whenever the word power was spoken. They were afraid too, and they hid that fear beneath orders and silence. Late one night, Renard met with Caro, the scarred smuggler who once claimed he had seen shadows moving in the border sky. Caro drank heavily before speaking, his voice rough. "You want to know the truth, boy? Then listen. I flew close again, closer than anyone, and I saw it." Renard leaned in. "What did you see?" Caro's eyes shook as he whispered. "A ship, so large it blocked the stars, but it wasn't a ship like ours. It was alive. It pulsed, it breathed, it looked at me." Renard felt the air leave his chest. "A living ship?" Caro nodded. "I don't care what the council says, the humans guard something not built by them. Maybe not built by anyone. Maybe older than the galaxy itself." He gripped Renard's arm, voice cracking. "And if it wakes, boy, nothing will survive." Renard staggered back, his heart racing. Was that the truth? Did the humans hold ancient weapons, living machines, shadows that swallowed fleets whole? Or was it something worse? Something beyond even human control? The next day, across the galaxy, a new rumor spread like fire. An unmarked convoy had been spotted near the border, escorted by strange vessels no species recognized. Some swore they were human ships, others swore they were not, but all agreed on one thing. The stars dimmed when they passed, as if the universe itself bent to their weight. Renard's mind burned with questions. If the humans were so powerful, why not conquer? Why stay silent? Unless silence itself was the only way to protect the rest of the galaxy from what waited beyond. That night, he returned again to the viewing deck, his eyes locked on the endless black. He whispered, "Is it true? Do you guard us or do you guard yourselves?" The silence pressed against him, heavy and suffocating, and for the first time, Renard thought he felt an answer, not in words, but in dread. The silence was not empty. It was a prison, Renard's. Hands shook, but his voice stayed steady. "If it is a prison, then one day something will break free." The stars flickered, as if in agreement, and Renard realized then, he was not only chasing truth, he was chasing doom. The galaxy could only ignore the whispers for so long. Already captains, historians, and fools like him were beginning to question. And soon, someone else would try to trespass, and when they did, silence might not be enough. The final revelation. The galaxy waited in silence. The humans had spoken once, and their warning echoed in every system. But warnings never lasted forever, and curiosity never stayed quiet. Another fleet was gathering at the edge of human space. Smaller than Veyruk's, but reckless enough to try again, Renard stood in the viewing deck of Calros Station, his eyes locked on the void. He could feel it, the air around him tense, heavy as if the stars themselves knew what was coming. This trespass would not end like the last, he thought. This one would bring something greater. The fleet crossed the border. Renard's breath caught as the stars dimmed instantly, like curtains falling over the sky. Every console across the galaxy lit up, every channel went silent. And then, for the first time in centuries, the humans revealed themselves. Out of the dark, a shape emerged. At first it looked like a shadow, too large to comprehend. Then the shadow grew, stretching across constellations, blocking entire clusters of stars. Gasps spread through every system as the scale became clear. It was not a fleet, not even a superweapon. It was one single human vessel. The ship was larger than moons, larger than worlds. Its hull shimmered like black glass, swallowing light instead of reflecting it. No engines burned, no weapons fired, and yet its very presence pressed down on all who looked. It was a ship built not for travel but for dominance. And then it spoke, not in words but in a voice that filled the bones of every living being. The galaxy ends here. The voice was human and not human, layered with something older, something endless. Beyond this line is not for you. The trespassing fleet panicked, their ships turning wildly, but it was too late. The great human vessel pulsed once and the stars bent. One by one, the alien ships folded into nothing, not destroyed, not shattered, simply erased. Silence followed, heavier than death. Across the galaxy, fear turned to surrender. Races that had warred for centuries bowed their heads. Councils that once mocked Earth fell into silence. Even pirates swore never to approach the black again. For they all understood. The humans were not defending their worlds. They were defending something else behind the silence. Renar pressed. His hand against the viewing glass, his body shaking, he whispered, "What are you guarding?" The great vessel shifted as if turning its endless gaze toward him. For a heartbeat, Renar thought he saw what lay beyond. Not stars, not ships, but an endless storm of darkness, moving and alive. Something older than galaxies, something chained. Behind the wall of silence, the voice returned, softer now but far more terrifying. "We are not your enemy. We are your shield." Renar's breath froze in his chest. The truth was worse than he imagined. The humans were not silent because of power alone. They were silent because silence was the only way to keep the galaxy safe. If the border broke, if the prison opened, all life would be undone. The vessel pulsed again, and the stars returned. The black void shimmered back into stillness. The galaxy sighed in fear and awe. The humans retreated into silence once more. Guarding the border as they always had, Renar collapsed to his knees, tears running down his face. His curiosity had brought him close to truth, and now he wished he had never asked, for he understood now why no alien dared demand answers. The answers were worse than any nightmare. The galaxy's borders stopped at human space, not because humans ruled, but because they protected, and every species knew better than to test them again.